So welcome into Philadelphia Walks PTSD. My name is Sharon Cole, or Sharon or Cole, whatever you want to refer to me as, in a good way. I don't care. Rat, pig, horse, cow, rhino, lizard, dinosaur, crazy girl walking the dogs. What happened to that one over there? All kinds of things have been said and done because people belong to a dumb group, I guess, or various groups that are kind of in the dumb realm, like gangs or family ring, or like serious rings where they actually will even maybe move in around a target. That's how far some people will go. Or religious sects, sects. So very special ones where people are made to feel more important than everybody else. We know something you don't. Never considering that they're completely wrong or that there's other information to be had, and so forth and so on. So anyway, here we are on day 121 of my one video each day, 365 day donation ask for donations big and small, short and tall, whatever at all, because of a life tortured, lost, stolen, wild goose chased, if you will, held down, seriously oppressed, because of taunting, teasing, harassment, all of these things keeping me in place and in a state of fear constantly, and wondering what I'm supposed to do because Philadelphia has a way of like possibly messaging people, and it can keep someone very preoccupied. Like, oh, what's that supposed to mean? What that's supposed, what is that? Okay, so now every address with an 11 in it is highly emphasized. Does that mean that every address with an 11 in it is part of an undercover task force for police or the FBI or something? Like, the thing is, like, it's possible information can come flowing to a person through various means and messaging, if you will, sort of like the Sherlock. Apparently there was a Sherlock show a long time ago, back around 2013, 14, 15 or so, and a lot of things would be emphasized as the main character walked around. Someone I went to school with actually like brought it up, and I had never seen the show, and they're like, oh, is it sort of like thing, because I was writing about my experience. Oh, is it sort of like things are emphasized? I'm like, it's like that. Like, you're supposed to notice this more than that. You're supposed to notice this and then see what happens in the news. So if you notice 20 Manning Street or 20 Manning Grill, which was a restaurant, or Manning keeps coming up, Manning, 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 like Peyton Manning, 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 and you're like, God, what's going on with the name Manning or the word Manning? Then in the news later that day, turns out a Marine veteran, I believe, in Brooklyn was killed by a bunch of teenagers who just got rowdy someday and for some reason jumped him, even though he really wasn't like a problem for those teenagers. It was some sort of weird random act of like violent mobbing or what have you. And his last name was Manning. So anyway, it's stuff like that where you're like, okay, then what? But and in a way, that's a wild goose chase. So I'll start from the beginning. On the fourth Monday of January 2011, I was made to believe I'd be murdered in my apartment. I believed it was the last night of my life. I was convulsing, trembling, trying to hold the phone. It took me like a while to like figure out what to do. I didn't have like a voice for a minute or two. Like nothing would come out. I was totally stunned into submission, if you will. I decided to call my sister first for some reason because I felt like if I tried to call police, it wouldn't go to the police, or I felt like a bad person for calling the police, because technically Philly's very liberal, so a lot of messages out there come in about you better not call the police, you better not call the police, you better not call the police, you better. The thing is, like, if someone's life is in danger, then that would be like one of the people you would actually call. Or if you saw someone being, violently tortured or raped or whatever on the street, it's like at some point you have to call someone to come in because you can't allow someone to be tortured that badly, It's like, who do you call? Like, should I step in or what? So anyway, I called my sister, then called the police. My sister convinced me to call the police. I did feel like it was being rerouted to some other department, like in some mysterious CIA office. I was like, it seems off. and a guy at the dispatch center, whoever would answered the 911 call at like 3:30, 4:30 in the morning, he had a falsetto type voice. It's kind of an Italian voice that can almost sound like someone's getting off on their rocks a little too much, and it has a flatness to it. It's hard to describe. Um, and I felt like it was fake or there was a joke going on. So in a way that fed like a paranoia type, feeling or what have you. So anyway, and if that weren't enough, the games commenced after that. When I tried to call my mom the next day, we're sorry, the phone number you're trying to reach has been disconnected. She was living in Jacksonville, Florida with her sister, my aunt. And if I had called her the night that everything kicked off, I would have felt like, even worse, it would have seemed like more of a horror film, like a secret horror film was being produced by people in a secret society, I guess. Like it kind of seemed that way because it was technically, I'm thinking, who didn't know that this went off? That's, I felt like there were people in the rafters in like a, some sort of Dominion like building, like, look at Sharon scared. Oh, even Osama bin Laden was found during the same time period that I was scared out of my apartment. And there was a photo, and photos have come up lately that look like it. And everyone around the White House table was looking like, oh, they caught Osama, because they were able to view it through someone's like body cam feed. So when that came out in the news, like for a second, I was like, Osama bin Laden, the number one, wanted terrorist or whatever, actually was caught and killed, I guess. We have to take this as truth. And basically I do, because if you don't, you could get targeted worse. I'm kidding. I don't know what happened. So I kind of wonder, like, if you say, oh, it was an inside job on the towers, does that make you does that automatically make you someone who's not a US citizen or whatever? That's back in the day, remember? So Osama bin Laden was caught, photo of everyone at the White House conference table. And for a second, I was like, were there people who could see into my apartment when I was scared? It did feel like that. It felt like, how many people could see into my apartment while I was being tortured and terrorized, like scared, and then walked around the streets of Philadelphia, barely. People here don't really have a sense of, I actually have a sense of humor. All you have to do is say one or two things. I want to get a t-shirt that says, you don't mind, do you? Because I'm so used to people being like, you don't mind, do you? You don't mind, do you? You don't mind, do you? Don't mind if I do. Don't mind if I do. And in a way, in a second, I can be ROFL. I'm technically a very, funny-ish, meaning I have a sense of humor and can laugh very hard, ROFL. Philly, I don't know so much. They prefer horror. There's a strain running through a lot of lineages here that is very, what's the word? Sadist or psychopathic or sociopathic? This is 911. How can we help you? You know what I mean? It has that, there's something kind of missing. I don't see tons of, there are people who laugh. But in general, this city is based on sociopathy. I swear to God. So, and I would move. I thought I was going to be away and I would never be back. I wanted to be able to enjoy Philadelphia, but because of this, I couldn't. And I love certain parts like the Riverwalk, and, I'm more of a healthy person, so I like certain things. And I didn't know that I would be forced back here. So several people passed away in my family, and all of a sudden I found myself, having to spend all the money that I saved up. Like I was like, well, I might as well save up money while I'm living here with my mom and aunt, even though I did contribute to them because I felt badly and I didn't want to be a leech. But anyway, two other people benefited from the sale of that house who never contributed to the house. But anyway, only when it mattered, when you have to fix it up to sell it. But anyway, that's how bad this case is. And it's like, what's wrong with everyone? There's something seriously wrong. If someone were standing there and didn't have, I would not be able to tell them they had to leave within 3 weeks or 15 minutes or this. I would be like, no problem. It's, we'll figure something out. We'll work something out, or at least we can help you with this, that, or the other, since we're forcing you to leave, even though you were invited by your mom and aunt, happily, because they would rather see you here instead of whatever was going on in Philadelphia. So anyway, point being, I was talking about sort of the, sense of humor thing. But anyway, in Philadelphia, I'll get back on track with the wild goose chase. It's like I got stuck in dog walking and I kept trying to figure out, like, maybe I kept sending out like resumes to see if I could find a job when I could, because it was a thing, like I was so held down by oppression and fear and terror that being able to apply for things becomes like 10 times harder. So I kept trying. I interviewed for a couple jobs. They didn't work out. And in a way, I know there's someone in my airspace blocking me. So, oh well, they just found out they're not very good at helping people. So anyway, wild goose chase. It was never ending. People played games wherever I went. There was messaging wherever I went. It's hard to explain. You would have to experience it. And there are a lot of people out here who might not be talking. There are a lot of people who might feel special because they might feel like they get messages from here or there and they think they're special. But guess what song I got to make sure I never felt special? Think you're so special, but they're a creep. Da, 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 da. That song. They make their tortured victims or slaves make sure that you never think too much of yourself, because there are a dime a dozen these people out here. But a lot of people think they're special, and they think they're spoken to, or they receive seeming messages like, oh, what am I supposed to do with that? But nobody knows what to do with it, right? Unless they're actually paid by an agency. So you don't work for an agency unless you actually get a paycheck by that agency. But apparently they're using people. I have a feeling they do use people quite a bit. So anyway, but wild goose chase. Oh, the window washers are out. I was like, oh my gosh, there's a bird by the window. Turns out the window washers are here a week late. I do recall that we got an email saying that window washers were going to be between 24 and 27. But that happens here a lot, maybe to throw people off schedule-wise. So wild goose chase. Things were constantly happening. A lot of clients of mine, while I was stuck and almost human trafficked, there's a good argument for it, in dog walking, kept me like constantly running and like worrying about this, worrying about that, alarms going off, this, something wrong over here, something wrong over there, something wrong over here, something, and it's like, it's hard to explain, but these people keep their targets on a wild goose chase, never to find an answer to anything. Also, they hold people down so much. It's almost like they're psychopathic, low-level Italians, for lack of a better word. They weren't all Italian people, but that's what I think of, the soprano type mindset, where the old school soprano mindset, where they need to keep people under their thumbs in order to feel superior or in charge. They don't want anybody letting out the secrets. It's kind of in that realm. They behave in a way like, we need to keep you here because we need to have people to control. In a way, it's slavery. It is like a modern form of slavery. It's hard to describe because I don't want to negate or minimize the history of slavery. But in a way, and people know what I'm talking about, when you enter someone, say you have kids or you're one of those kids who showed up at someone else's house and you're like, something's wrong here. And you can already tell the parents are too controlling and they need to keep people under, they got all these rules left. It's okay to have rules to a point, but also people need to grow and experience the world. So it's like they have rules to the point where like you live in so much fear of the Nazi government that something's wrong with that way. It's a way to hide secrets. That's one of the better ways to think of it. So people in soprano/Nazi-ish. Nazis are totally different, but soprano-ish people need to keep their secrets, so they don't want their kids or anybody else or anyone they're controlling to run out too far away from home, per se. So that's all I have to say. So I'll wind it down here since we have some window washers in the house. So today's the day they're showing up, on May 1st. Have a great day. Sorry, I was a little bit confusing there. It's hard to describe everything that went on. Um, you know, hard to explain. Hard to explain. That's probably the best phrase. It's hard to explain everything that went on, but a target is made to seem, like the soprano-ish people or the people with this strain. They will roll their eyes and be condescending and act like, oh my God, I don't roll my eyes at people. And if I do, because I'm tired of, more like I'm tired and exhausted, but it would be privately to myself. I would never secretly try to bond with someone at the expense of another. So, and there are people out there who have bonded over the expense of another. They have their secret little communication. Usually it's like you feel like the third wheel when you're in front of a married couple or something. And it can kind of happen sometimes by accident-ish just because people share, but sometimes it's too much. And you're like, you're kidding. This couple thinks they're all that in a bag of chips. They're rolling their eyes at me. Put them to the test. They'll never pass. Okay, thanks. Have a great day.